If you're actively in the organic dropshipping space, then over these last few weeks, you've probably seen a lot of these canvases or paintings, maybe even some blankets and tapestries. And if you haven't, then you're definitely doing something wrong when it comes to product research. But anyways, there's two things that all of these products you've been seeing have in common. The first one is they're all created by something called print on demand, which is what today's video is about. But the second thing they have in common is they all, maybe besides a few, convert really fucking well. Some of them as high as $7,000 per million views. Now you may be asking, yeah, sure, Ethan, maybe, you know, some of them are all right. You know, I'm sure there are a few good ones out there, but like, how do you know? You know, how do you know for sure? Well, not only did I go out and obviously test it myself and end up creating a product that converts around $5,000 per million views within like 24 hours, but it's also because about 90% of all of these accounts that you've been seeing all over your burner are my students inside of the Money Making Committee's inner circle. And the reason they all seem to have appeared out of nowhere and basically just popped up overnight is because once I did a little bit of my own testing and tested around with a few students and realized the potential that print on demand had, we got to work. So after a few group inner circle lessons, just me kind of breaking it down to everybody, how it works and the best way to go about it, I went out and basically pushed every single student to attempt at least like one print on demand product, just give it a try. And the results so far have been fucking crazy. But instead of just taking my word for it, and before we move on to all the good stuff and I teach you how you can go out and do this for yourself, I've actually brought in a few students onto today's video so you can get their thoughts on it as well. So how has your experience been with print on demand so far?
It's to a point where like all I do is run print on demand products now.
It's been so good. It's the quickest I've ever made £2,000 in my life. Like,
beautiful.
The potential for this is wild.
Print on demand literally was got me my first winning product.
I think it's a brilliant opportunity for people who are creative.
So for you, how much has print on demand itself made you just within these last few weeks?
Both of the print on demand products I'm running right now, they basically convert over 5K. And one of them actually is my highest converting product ever, which is converting at 7K per mil.
I've had my first £6,000 revenue month from having no sales. So first product with sales, first 1K day within 4 days, I believe.
In the last week, I've made 5K.
I had like a 1.3K week.
Nice, which is the most you've ever done, right?
Absolutely.
So would you say print on demand thus far in your entire organic journey has actually brought you the most success?
Out of anything that I've done, oh yes.
So now that you guys understand that I'm not overhyping this for no reason and that we have literally struck motherfucking gold, I'm gonna move on to break down exactly how print on demand works, and I'm gonna give you all of the information that you could possibly need to go and create your next six-figure product out of thin air. Now, before we move on to me basically giving you a step-by-step walkthrough A to Z on how to do this and literally how to go from scratch, absolutely nothing, not even having the idea of the product, all the way to getting the samples to your house, creating content for the product and selling the product, I'm gonna break down some pros and cons, how it kind of works in a nutshell, and also some valuable resources for you guys to leave this video with. Okay, so what is print on demand and how does it work? I'll break this down really quick if you don't already know what it is, and then we're gonna move on. But basically, it's the exact same thing as your normal drop shipping, except with one little extra step. But the actual like process for you as the drop shipper is gonna be literally no different. So as majority of all of you already know, just your basic drop shipping model is, somebody orders something from your store, that's forwarded in some shape, form, or fashion to a supplier. That supplier then charges you the cost of goods for the product and then just sends the physical product out to your customer. You keep the remaining of the profit. Now, the process for print on demand is basically the exact same, except when it gets to the supplier part and the supplier gets the information from your store, from the customer, they see the order, that's when they basically put the product together and they put whatever design, any digital design basically that you can come up with that's, digital, onto a plethora of different products, 900 plus products to be exact. And you could think of these as your base products. So stuff all the way from blankets, canvases, magnets, stickers, even some of them are supplements that you can literally just white label. So damn near any physical product that exists, they have blank versions of that. When the order is made, they take whatever digital design that you've uploaded and created the product with, and they then print it onto that product and then send the product to your customer. Hence the name print on demand. Now, let's move on to some benefits or some pros and cons of print on demand. Now, let's start with the pros. So first pro, the biggest pro of it all, and why it's damn near revolutionary, is because you're creating winning products out of thin air. You're literally creating winning products out of thin air that never existed before. A lot of the time, based on where you're at, they have faster shipping times, but shipping to the US, some of them are as fast as like 3 days for express shipping, and their average is like 5 to 8 days for shipping, which, as we all know, is absolutely amazing considering half the time, majority of products that you're drop shipping are taking anywhere from 10 to 15 days to actually make it to your customer. Now, the third pro is very high quality. Majority of the products that you're going to print on demand are going to be really good quality. Now, some people out there, they don't give a shit about this, but it's actually pretty beneficial in terms of repeat customers and decreasing chargebacks and refunds. Now, the fourth is higher barrier to entry for competition. People can go out there and kind of maybe replicate something similar to what you're doing, but if you do something custom enough, it's virtually impossible for anyone to go out there and one-of-one copy what you're doing. So what this does is it keeps the saturation lower for your product for a longer duration of time. Now, the fifth pro that is actually my favorite out of all of them, and half the reason I love it so much, is because of the boost in virality from the original content factor. I talk about this in a lot of my videos, so I'm not going to yap about it for too long, but basically, the less of something that the platforms have seen, the more they're going to push it out, and the easier it's going to be to go viral. Because as social media as a whole gets more and more diluted with all these different creators, they don't want to be just shoving the same video or the same thing over and over to their consumers. So the more original a video looks, the more it's going to get pushed out, the more viral it's going to go. And of course, if it's a product that's never been shown on the platform, never had a video made about it, obviously that kind of goes into the sort of original factor, making the video seem very original. Now let's move on to some cons of print on demand products. And really only two came to mind. Now, the first one being the most evident is your cost of goods are going to typically be a little higher than normal, or what you would maybe normally get the exact same product from a Chinese supplier for. But I mean, it makes sense as to why, considering how high of quality the products are and, you know, obviously faster shipping times. But lucky for you guys, I'm not going to gatekeep this. And something we've actually been implementing for our students is once they actually scale, they have proof of concept, the product is converting good, and they're actually getting a good consistent amount of sales. Then take that product, but then go basically all of these Chinese suppliers. Think about a lot of suppliers are able to virtually do the same thing, print on demand products. Ease of virality, no matter what, for all of you, I recommend all of the steps before getting to a point where your product is just being so fire in general that they carry the product and getting the samples. It's really not that big of a deal. Print on demand companies like Printify, which we're going to go over in the next section. Now, the second con isn't really that bad of a con. I just thought I would include it. But basically, all of these products, if you really think about it, they're all showcase products. But with that ease of virality factor because of the original content ordeal and the products just being so fire in general that they carry the videos anyways, it's really not that big of a deal. But regardless, as you can see, the pros obviously far outweigh the cons. Now, before we move on to the actual good stuff and the full walkthrough from A to Z, I want to leave you guys with some really valuable information. What I'm giving you here is basically all of the best performing products and the best company to use that we've all been using ourselves thus far. Now, there are a trillion different print on demand companies out there, but bar none, Printify is the way to go. They got the best shipping times, they got the best quality, they have the best cost of goods, and it's really easy to use. So basically, you know, unless you want to do your own testing, go out there and use Printify off rip. So now, of course, this is subject to change because we're all just now as a whole space dabbling into this, but all of the best performing products that me and all of our other students have been using and printing with so far have been tapestries or blankets, canvases, rugs, and t-shirts, which we really haven't messed with a whole lot, and none of our students have actually ran any pieces of clothing, but I personally know somebody that did really well with just your basic little funny t-shirts, and I just know for a fact they have a lot of potential if you actually execute them correctly. So now with all of that out of the way, I'm gonna break down and walk you through exactly how to go from straight up square one, not even having an idea in mind, all the way to running the product. Now, your very first step is going to be figuring out exactly what you want your base product to be. And that would preferably be one of the ones I just mentioned because they already have proof of concept and we know majority of them are converting really high. Now, your second step is going to be deciding on which converting trait you want your product to have. Now, of course, there's hella traits that go into making a winning product, but for this exact situation and just the nature of the products, the two main traits that you're gonna be able to work with the most and that are basically gonna be dependent upon the entire product is going to be your passionate trait or emotional trait. And as a whole, if you didn't already know this, these two traits specifically are what largely dictate what a product converts at and how well a product converts. Now, really quick, I'll break down to you what a passionate trait would be and what an emotional trait would be. When it comes to passionate traits, they're basically just hobbies. Just think of hobbies. That's virtually all a passionate trait is. It's always going to be associated with a hobby. Now, what's the definition of a hobby? A hobby is considered to be a regular activity that is done for enjoyment, typically during one's leisure time. So this means things like somebody's favorite show, somebody's favorite movie, or maybe even video game, and also certain activities. So you can think of sports or something like knitting, right? These are all hobbies. So even outside of print on demand and even today's video, you can leave here and keep it ingrained in your mind. Passionate means hobby. Passionate trait equals somebody's hobby. Now, the emotional trait is pretty self-explanatory. This trait is going to need to evoke some sort of emotion. Now, the strongest or, most powerful, basically most highest converting sort of emotion that your product can conflict will be something more sentimental, sad, or romantic. So this means things like relationships or couple gift. Another thing that comes to mind, the fuck? Did I just turn fucking British? Anyways, another thing that comes to mind when we're talking about strong emotional traits would be something like a deceased loved one, but this doesn't just have to be a family member. It could be a pet, a friend, maybe even somebody's dead favorite rapper or celebrity. Now, these two traits go hand in hand, but they do have their differences. But just for simplicity's sake for this video, we're gonna imagine that we're going the passionate trait route. And just to add in some brain rot, and also because this is like the most saturated print-on-demand product that I have seen yet, we're gonna use Fortnite as the example. The next thing we're gonna need to do is choose something from Fortnite that will resonate and be recognized by majority of the audience. So I'm not just gonna go out and maybe find just a picture of my favorite skin or something silly that may be a little bit more niched down, or I definitely wouldn't go out and pick something that's just an inside joke with me and my duo. You're gonna wanna choose something from this niche that is largely recognized by majority of the audience. So the very first thing that will come to mind, at least for me, is maps or POIs within the game, because it doesn't matter what you like, what you don't like. If you're playing the video game, you know what these things are. So now we're getting closer, right? We've decided passionate trait. We went with a video game. We picked Fortnite. We understand it needs to be recognized by majority of the audience. So we went with maps or POIs within the game. And now our next step, we can go about two different ways. The first one, really simple. You could just go to Google or Pinterest and find stock photos of what you have in mind. So let's say, for example, I'm thinking, okay, I want to make Fortnite one of my variants. That's going to be one of my products. So then I would go onto Pinterest and Google and just look up maybe good pictures of tilted towers from Fortnite, etc., using keywords and sifting through all this information, all of these photos, until you find one that you think looks the best. Don't just go pick a random one that looks a little shitty, or maybe only shows half of what you're trying to show, or maybe it's super low quality, because at this point, basically what you're doing is you're going and finding half of the product itself. So actually take your time to make sure you're going out and finding like the perfect photos and the perfect angles and capturing exactly what you want. Now, the second way you can go about step 4 is just literally creating the design yourself, which is a large majority of us are not going to be doing, but I'm sure there's a few of you out there that are doing organic that have maybe dabbled in some Photoshop shit and could probably potentially create something of your own, which if actually done correctly would technically be the most optimal way to go about it, because it would basically be unreplicatable. Now, you're gonna take the photos and designs you find and run them through some sort of filter with an app like Canva or PixArt to give them kind of a custom look, make them look better in general, and also increase the barrier to entry. Now, some of this is situational for the product. Like, for example, if you're gonna go for something like a canvas, nobody just wants a picture just printed onto a canvas. Anybody could go and do that. So in that case, you'd wanna throw some sort of AI filter on it to give it some sort of effect, change the colors. A lot of people are making them look painted, which so far, actually out of all the products, has been performing the best, making canvases look like you painted them and then taking that route with your content as well. But for some products, like maybe a tapestry blanket, you wouldn't really have to do much at all, because what makes the product so good is just it physically being on somebody's blanket to begin with. But even then, you could still always add your own custom them look, to increase barrier to entry, and just make it the product itself better overall. Now for step 6, we're gonna save our final designs, which is preferably in PNG for the best quality for when you actually print it onto the product. And then you're gonna go and create the product in Printify, which is really easy. You just choose the base product, export your design into Printify and fit it onto the product how you desire. Then just make sure the resolution is green on the right-hand side, and bada bing, a bada boom. You save the product and now it's created. Now for our final step, once the product is actually created, you're gonna go to My Products, then to Create Order, and then click Sample. And just like that, you have your very own winning product that you created on its way to your house for you to run. That has probably a 90% chance of converting at least 1K per million views, even if you have not a fuck all clue what you're doing. That is how strong this is. If you think this video was valuable, imagine what is inside my organic dropshipping Discord that grants you access to me, my fully A to Z in-depth organic dropshipping course that has information in there that I can guarantee you have not seen on YouTube. Access to my teams that I personally use that allow me to take this little thing that organic dropshipping is and turn it into a full-blown scalable business. I mean, there's so many resources inside the money making committee that I couldn't even list them all on this video because it would take too long, but weekly group calls with me. And now since the release of this video, I'm going to be giving out even more valuable information regarding print on demand inside of the money making committee's Discord. I mean, guys, it's really a no-brainer. Not only is the money making committee taking over 2025 and virtually anybody you know doing organic dropshipping will be inside of it, but if you actually want to take this serious and make a full-time high income from organic, then you can join the money making committee by clicking the link in the description below this video. But with all that being said, regardless of if I see you inside the money making committee or not, it doesn't really matter to me. But what does matter to me is you clicking that subscribe button, leaving a like, and if you really got a lot of value out of this video, maybe even leaving a comment so I can continue making videos like this to help you guys on your organic dropshipping journey. Also, if you really fuck with your boy, I'm gonna leave my Instagram link down below in the subscription. Feel free to go follow me. But that's gonna be it for today's video, and I will see you on the next one.